Hello, welcome to another FCA video. My name is Clint Daniels. I'm the faculty sponsor for FCA at Indian Trail Middle School, and we're talking about a pretty serious discussion today. A Bible verse that's really going to speak some truth to you in Romans 8:28. It's all about God working everything for our good. And I've heard so many people ask the question through the years, Christians, non-Christians, are like, why do bad things happen to good people? And we're going to address that question today through lots of stories and testimonies of God's love. So with the first slide, I'm going to go straight to sports here. When I think of a bad story that turned out for the good, I think of the 1999 St. Louis Rams. Beginning of their season, preseason starts off. They had this quarterback by the name of Trent Green that was supposed to be their general out there. He goes down in the preseason, injured for the whole year. And I remember sportscasters, if you flipped on ESPN, watched SportsCenter, they all were starting to doubt the Rams a little bit. You know, what are they going to do? Head coach Dick Vermeil, he says, hey, we're going to rally around this guy by the name of Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner, nobody even heard of the guy. He played for the Iowa Barnstormers Arena Football League. He was a former grocery bagger at Hy-Vee. And this guy's all of a sudden given the reins to a football team. Well, guess what happens? The Rams go out, they go 13-3, and they won the Super Bowl. It was absolutely crazy how something horrible, the awful injury to Trent Green, was turned into a Super Bowl victory. If you have never seen the game, it was quite dramatic. The bottom picture shows it right here. The Tennessee Titans had the ball. They got stopped on the 1-yard line, and the Rams won the game. Had they scored that touchdown, the Tennessee Titans would have taken the victory. But Kurt Warner, pictured right here, hoisting the trophy, Super Bowl champion there. That's just one way that God works for our good. And let's talk about it. Romans 8:28, that's what this lesson is all about, says this. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. So, two main parts to remember here. Number one, this is the part that everyone realizes we like this part here. Everything works for the good, okay? Everything works for the good. What does that mean? That means, like, even if something is bad that happens, can God twist it and weave it into something special? You're darn right he can, okay? But you got to be careful, because a lot of people cross off the last half of the verse. The last half of the verse, it's only for those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. The sad truth is there are a lot of people who don't follow that second half. Maybe they don't call themselves Christians, or they don't devote themselves to God. He doesn't have your back, you know, if that's the case. But if you're all in for God, you are a Christian, guess what? He is going to support you and love you. I put here, you got to see the positive eternal perspective in things, you know. I think a verse that goes along with that is Philippians 4:8. Let's read that real quick. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and what is honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. And if you do that, you know, even out of something bad, you might see something good if you think about those good things. When I think of biblical characters that go along with the story, I think of the story of Joseph. I love the story of Joseph. Here he's got his Technicolor dream coat here. His dad totally favored Joseph and gave him this special coat, made all his brothers jealous. Well, what do the brothers do? They sell him into slavery, and you would think, oh, awful, you know. What does Joseph do? He just takes it and he moves on. He uses this as a way to take the next step in life. And he's sold to this guy by the name of Potiphar, and he's actually put in charge there. So that's a good thing. You know, God worked it for the good there. But then you got something bad, because guess what? Potiphar's wife told a horrible lie about Joseph, and he's thrown back into prison. That's a bad thing. Well, my gosh, let's continue the story here. Um, while he's in prison, he actually interprets the Pharaoh's dream. Now, the Pharaoh's the head over all the land. And in that dream, Joseph predicts that they're going to have 7 years of prosperity, which means like really good weather, good growth and farming and all that. And then 7 years of what they call famine. Now, a famine is like just drought, horrible, awful years. So what does Joseph do? They put him in charge of a lot of stuff there to get themselves saving and readying themselves for that famine during the years of prosperity. So when the famine came, it was nothing because they had all this stuff ready to go that Joseph had prepared. Okay. Now the coolest thing about the story, and this is kind of a lesson in forgiveness here. The brothers, they were stuck in the famine. They come up. They end up bowing down to Joseph here. And I love this verse from Genesis chapter 50, verses 19 to 20. It says, they were so worried that Joseph wouldn't give them any food, that he would hold a grudge against them for throwing him into slavery. But listen to what he says here. He says, Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid, for am I in God's place? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive." And that's the perspective that we need to have as Christians. Joseph saw it. He knew that God somehow took his story and worked it for the good. Let's go ahead and move on to the next story here. Another testimony of a man by the name of John Newton. I don't know if you've heard of the guy. John Newton, 1705 to 1827. This guy's an old man, long since gone from this earth. So he grew up on the sea with his father, and his dad owned a boat, and he didn't like the boat and the ship. He didn't like life on the sea. He found it very disgusting, actually, and he deserted the ship. And you know what happened because of that? He actually was flogged for it. When you're flogged, you're basically beaten. That's another word for beaten. And that happened in 1744. Well, as his life goes on, he ends up finding himself working on a slave ship because slavery was very much still around in the 1700s. And in 1748, he found himself working on a slave ship. So as he's working on this ship in 1748, May 10th was a very pivotal day because there was a violent storm that totally shook his boat, and he prayed to God. At that moment, he gave his life. And he said, I know, I trust in you that you'll get me through it. And God did let him survive for his own purposes, So that's a pretty awful thing. Let's just reflect on his life. He's trading human beings, involved in slavery. That's an awful, awful thing. Okay? Well, after that day, it opened him up to a new perspective there. He began to treat his slaves humanely, which means he was nice to them. Okay? He likewise realized that he didn't want to start doing that anymore. He gave up his life as a slave trader, which may have actually been quite profitable. He probably may have been rich, and gave up his life for a less high role to be a minister, and work for God's team there. And while he was a minister they don't know the actual dates, between 1760 and 1770, this gentleman, John Newman, wrote the song Amazing Grace. And I quite frankly, I think that may be the most well-known Christian song of all time. So many different versions of it, but talk about God working for the good here. Amazing stuff through the life of John Newton. Well, let's go ahead and ask some reflection questions. I want you guys to think about these as you in this lesson today. So I have to ask you, so which one of the stories you heard today hits home the most with you? Why? Why did that story hit home with you? Another question. How has God worked something that you might be considered bad for the good of you? Has God done that for you in your life already? And then finally, the last one, what is something good that can come out of a problem that you're facing right now. Open your mind up. There's a positive perspective out there. I have a picture off to the side here that's very, very precious to me. This is actually me here when I was 18 years old and a senior in high school. I just finished the state golf tournament. This is my grandmother Mary Kay on the left and my grandpa Bill on the right. I called them Meemaw and Papaw. I'll have a quick story to share about my Meemaw. Meemaw was my favorite grandmother. She was the life of the party. She just was an incredible woman, and she had so much life in her. She was very healthy. She played golf, and you know what? It was in December of that year that my grandmother started feeling a little bit sick, and she went to the doctor. And the doctor gave her the grim news that she had stomach cancer and that she had about a month left to live. And my grandmother passed away in February of '96, and I was only 19 years old. My other grandmother from my dad's side passed away the day before. Holy smokes, guys. I lost both my grandmothers in one day. And I tell you what, if you had asked me at that moment if that was a good event, I would have laughed at you. I would have laughed at you because that woman meant everything to me. And I didn't want to see her die. But that's the way it happened. And it was interesting because my family had to come together after that. Because of that week, with both of my grandmothers dying in one day, I am a stronger person today because of that. God worked it for the good. He took my family, the core of my family, my mom, my dad, and my two younger brothers, and we today, all of us are still living. We today are a stronger family because of that week. Now, my Meemaw's memories will be forever in my heart. But for me, guys, that is just a one last story, last testimony about how God can work things for the good. So here's an idea for your FCA groups if you guys want to get together for a movie night. There's lots of great sports movies. I'm going to recommend this one. I watched it a few weeks ago called Greater. It is the story of Brandon Burlsworth, an offensive guard for University of Arkansas. I'm not going to tell you any of this story. I want you to watch the movie for yourself. But I tell you what, it's a great thought about how God can work for the good. And I did actually write a blog post about that on my blog for Christian teachers. So faculty sponsors, feel free to use that link to find the article there. Guys, I hope that God is working amazing things in your life. And I tell you what, let's just end by saying this. If you're going through something right now that is something you don't understand, something that you think is only bad and you only see the negative part of it, open up your eyes. I tell you what, there is an eternal perspective out there that you'll see someday. And you know what? Sometimes it takes a while to see that. Sometimes a lot of it is reflection. So thank you so much for listening to this video on YouTube, and I pray that you all have a blessed day. Thank you so much.